And a very good morning if you're in the UK. For Australia, good afternoon. All heading off home now or already at home. Have one for me. It's been a big day. The UK government announced on Monday the creation of an official definition of anti-Muslim hostility. And the country will have a czar to tackle it in a £4 million drive. It said the valuable guidance tool would improve measurement of the problem as well as responses to it, with helplines encouraged to record incidences. Under the new definition, anti-Muslim hostility is defined as crimes such as violence or harassment directed at people who are either Muslim or perceived to be, as well as prejudicial stereotyping to encourage hatred against them, and unlawful discrimination. The definition, published alongside a long-awaited strategy on social cohesion, is not becoming law and does not mean that all anti-Muslim hostility would constitute a crime. Opposition party critics state this definition is so broad and subjective that it risks creating a backdoor blasphemy law with a chilling effect on free speech and legitimate criticism of Islamist extremism. Britain already has strong laws to tackle hate crime and discrimination, and they should be enforced. So we have more words, more confusion, more politicking, and more backlash against Muslims from this initiative. We'll speak to our panel to understand whether this will be a valuable guidance tool or is it a barrier to free speech despite what the government says. Our panel today is David Atherton, a regular here, almost full-time I would say, and he's up bright and early. He was first in, chatting away to Jen and everything. And we also have Harry Miller, CEO of Fair Cop, and David Charalambous, founder of Reaching People. Gentlemen, thank you very much for joining me. Thank you, David Atherton, for getting up early.
Good evening. Well, I've got dodgy. Well, I used to have a dodgy PC with the camera, so I made sure it was working okay.
Good on you. But now you just love us. We know that. David, tell us your thoughts, just an appraisal of.
Right. Okay. Well, like the blue touch paper and stand back. This is one of the biggest incitements to resentment against the Muslim lobby in this country. I think it will have sort of the Streisand effect. Rather than shutting people up, it will just make people far more vocal. I don't know whether you guys know, but I read some news on X this morning. But in Kirklees Council, which is a very heavily Muslim area, the local council has sent round an edict that no one should be drawing images not only of Muhammad, but also now of Jesus, because it's idolatry under Islam, and also as well because in some fundamentalist Islamic countries like Afghanistan, even playing a musical instrument is haram or banned. What kind of culture, allows that? So, is what I'm saying now anti-Muslim hate, or is it, or am I just reading the room and just coming to conclusions based on the empirical evidence?
Yeah, I agree. I think it's more confusing than ever. But we have, I was going to say Mohammed Starmer, but I won't do that because I'll be in trouble. Harry Miller, CEO of Fair Cop, what do you think?
I think it's complete, it's totally crazy. I mean, it fails on its own terms, and it's as though this government and different governments don't learn from their own mistakes. When in 2014, the government of the day, led by Theresa May, Theresa May was the Home Secretary of the day. She decided out of nowhere that one of the groups that needed particular protection were trans people. So they introduced non-crime hate incidents, so that stirring up any form of hostility, criticism of trans people, of course, was classed and recorded as a non-crime hate incident. Well, this was designed, of course, to reduce hatred towards trans people. And what did he do? Well, the record shows that since that date, hatred towards trans people, so-called hatred anyway, increased many, many, many times over, and not just trans people, but all those groups that the government sought to protect by giving them special protection. The net result was an increase in hate and hostility, not a decrease. So I don't know what the government think they're playing at, other than, as David rightly points out, to spread a chilling effect on free speech. What they don't want any form of criticism. It's not about protecting Muslims. Quite frankly, Muslims don't need protecting, or if they do, they're certainly not top of the list. This is about something far more sinister.
David Charalumbus, founder of Reaching People. What are your thoughts?
Well, it's the usual playbook, to be honest. It's a smear-based narrative to preemptively discredit any dissenters. So what you have is you pre-cook a label, and we've seen them all in the past few years, conspiracy theorists, racist, far right, etc. You attach lots of negative experiences to those labels, and then anyone that speaks up, you just call them that label. It's very effective. You've seen it all the time. And of course, what happens is it's really just from the propaganda playbook. But if you try then to have a conversation with anyone that's watched too much TV, they will say, oh, you're one of those, are you? So what it does is it shuts down debate, it shuts down conversation. And as both the other people pointed out, it really gets people to start being quiet when they need to speak up. And it has the opposite effect of what it pretends to intend to have. So yeah, it's very problematic. Same old playbook, and it's really when you look at the Mindspace document that the government produced, it's almost a playbook for how they're going to influence and manipulate the public, and they're just using standard psychology to do so.
The Free Speech Union says it's pure Labor politics. We've seen a number of sitting Labor MPs were unseated by pro-Gaza independent candidates. They've seen Wes Streeting and Jess Phillips saw their majorities reduced. David, it's not looking good for the Labor Party. They're not going to win with the Muslim vote, and they're not going to win with anybody else.
Well, the Muslim vote has gone to the Green Party. So, like they can't win either way at the moment. And look at the way that the Labour Party is conducting politics in this country. Absolute farce. When it comes to events in Iran, they really are on a hiding to nothing at the moment. So they just don't get it, the Labour Party. That we've had enough of radical Islam. We've had enough of Sharia law. We've had enough of Muslims, being the cry bullies but always playing the victim at the same time. Do you know something? It's 5 years in a week's time when that Batley Grammar School teacher has gone into hiding. 5 years later, he still can't show his face in public. And one of the takeaways from that was the government, the Conservative government of the time, thought they were dealing with the moderates, and the moderates could be appealed to and things like that. But the people who turned up to protest the Batley Grammar School teacher, even some of the moderates are actually extremists. And the most worrying thing about this is, Starmer, Shabana Mahmood, the Home Secretary, has access to MI5 files. They know the threat that radical Islam is to Britain, and they are just too cowardly to confront it. People like David Betts and also now Professor David Starkey are actually openly talking of a civil war that's going to be incited in this country in the next few years. I think in 5-10 years' time, it's going to be quite nasty. I don't want it to happen. I hope we can sort things out peaceably amongst ourselves within the rule of law. But, this is just another ratchet that's moving around, and he just winds the non-Muslim population up, and it would just, as I say, it will just increase resentment, and people will be begging to fight back against it.
Yeah, Harry, I just was just wondering what your thoughts are. Do you think this will help the Labor Party, or do you think they're done anyway? Because this does smack Labor politics, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. It's Labour politics. It's the actions of desperate people who are wanting that they think wrongly that sucking up to the Muslim vote by giving Muslims special status in this country is going to garner them votes at the next election. But did I just say next election? I can't believe I said that. But at the next election.
Isn't it?
they're entirely wrong about that, because as David says, the Greens are going to sweep up that vote with their completely lunatic politics. I guess what Labour might be hoping for is that at some point the critical mass of tension within the Green Party, which at once embraces LGBTQI+ and radical Islam, that it will implode, explode, and that Zach Polanski will end up sitting on a heap of green bones. And then Labour might be able to come in and sweep up. But I think it's a vain hope by a desperate man leading a desperate party who are looking to get their asses well and truly spanked at the next elections.
Well, and I can see I won't go there at all, because David Atherton, you're a very bad influence on me, by the way. Anyway, moving right along, David Charalombus, what's your thoughts? And Labor politics it is. Do you think this is doing more good for the Labor Party, or more good for the Conservatives, or a hell of a lot of good for the Greens? I mean, the Greens will be going, bring it on, baby.
Well, I mean, from a skeptical outsider, it almost looks like they're all trying to, scorch the earth, aren't they? I mean, I don't think Labour will ever get in again from their policies, but they don't seem to care. When they're putting policies in, it's almost as though they're just being instructed to do something and they're doing it. They're not really thinking about it or behind it. The Labour supporters, most of them are obviously disillusioned, but the few hardcore ones that I've had a conversation with, and I say conversation, you can't talk to them. It's really kind of incredible. And a lot of this really does come down to sort of tribal psychology. And people, I mean, most voters will follow the party rather than the actual political stance. In fact, I'm pretty sure if you ask most supporters of a party what their political stance is, I don't think most of them will know. I think that's and I'm talking about the majority of people. So I personally think Labour are just being feeling the pressure to push certain policies through. And I mean, when you look at Starmer's, he's since he's been in, it's been an absolute dog's dinner, hasn't it?
General election could see the extinction of the Labour Party. They'll be down to 50 seats or less.
Yeah.
And theoretically, we should have a massive reform majority. It could be a majority as much as 80, 90 seats. People actually did some work on the Gorton and Denton result. Disappointing for reform that Matt Gilbert didn't get the seat. But if that was extrapolated, the swing to reform and what have you was extrapolated nationwide, out of 650 odd seats, reform would have got 427. We'll get 427 seats. Massive majority.
David, can I ask you, who was involved in doing this? They did this in secret, sneaky little people they are. No consultation, only with Muslim groups. Tell us more. I mean, because this is, and it's not like the Labor Party. This is quite underhand. I mean,
well, indeed. I always say that with most Muslim politicians in Britain, they're only 1 degree of separation away from an extremist. And also it's increasingly becoming evident that most Labour Party MPs and ministers are 1 degree of separation from Islamic extremists. My feeling is that the Labour Party consulted with every single extremist Muslim group in this country. For example, the Muslim Council of Britain, although they deny it, I'm not so sure. And what the umbrella is behind this consultation was the dark shadow of the Muslim Brotherhood. The Muslim Brotherhood was formed in 1922. Its stated aim is to overthrow Western liberal democracy and impose an Islamic caliphate. The Muslim Brotherhood is also the inspiration, if that's the right word, behind Hamas, Hezbollah, ISIS, Al Qaeda, Boko Haram in Nigeria. They really, that group really does have blood on its hands. The term Islamophobia was invented by the Muslim Brotherhood, and in the 1990s, they advised the Muslim Council of Britain on how to push this through as an agenda. They might have downgraded Islamophobia to anti-Muslim hatred, but it's still it's the same horse, different jockey kind of thing. As I say, it was the Muslim Brotherhood who advised Muslim Council of Britain in the 1990s. And because of the Muslim Council of Britain's ties with the Muslim Brotherhood, under the Cameron government in 2015, they were actually banned from actually offering advice. So really, so what we're looking at the moment is we have a dog's dinner of anti-Muslim hatred edict, which is basically coming from an extremist Islamic perspective.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. I think and I think you would agree, Harry. It's going to divide the community even more, or maybe it'll pull them together because the disdain for the Labor Party and these policies, you're becoming almost a two-tier society. One for the, and I'll be careful here, but one for for the Muslims and one for the rest of you. So do you think that would be putting a wedge between both groups more and more?
Yeah, they've been driving a wedge between all sorts of groups. I mean, it's funny, isn't it? I remember 20 years ago, the odd trans person that there was knocking around, they would knock around and people would sort of, smile, but they wouldn't cause them any problems whatsoever. It's only when you celebrate and demand that the rest of us celebrate their existence that and you stifle criticism, that you begin to ferment a problem. And that's precisely what's going to happen here. I mean, can you imagine if we three set up a group saying we want government protection against right-wing hate, we want there to be a right-wing hatred czar, and we introduce a definition that treating us as a collective bunch was to dehumanize us and to promote hatred. Well, I'm right-wing. I don't mind people criticizing me. I don't mind people criticizing my politics. I would expect them to do so. The difference is, of course, that right-wingers, as a rule, are not the ones who are going around planting bombs. They're not the ones going around stabbing people. They're not the ones that are driving teachers out of their post. They're not the ones that are shaming young boys because they dropped a copy of the Quran. So, of course, it's absolutely fine for those of us who are on the right to be demonized, for those of us on the right to be stereotyped by no less, of course, than the head of our government, the UK Prime Minister, who has no problem whatsoever in blaming the so-called far right for all kinds of imagined atrocities. So we don't get any of that protection. It's only the group that actually commit the atrocities that get the protection. And I find that bizarre, strange, incredibly dangerous. It makes me wonder who's pulling the strings. And I think fundamentally, our government and Keir Starmer are so terrified of Islam that what they're doing, they're operating a policy of appeasement to try and save their own skins.
Very briefly on that one, Harry. I wrote an article yesterday. I was sent a secretly recorded a presentation by a guy called Tim Horrobin from the Prevent program. He's in the Northwest, and apparently, when it comes to terrorism, the main threat in this country isn't militant Islam. It's the Christian nationalists like Tommy Robinson and Danny Thomas and the Bishop Dewar. Apparently we're the people to be worried about. He made no mention of radical Islam or Islam in his 1 hour presentation. I listened to the whole bloody lot, and it was absolutely awful. But yeah, we are actually actively being demonised. I believe.
I can give you another example. Following the riots a couple of years ago, which with a response to the Southport killings, Prevent, the government anti-terrorist agency, knocked on the door of a young woman in Liverpool and interviewed her about what her views were. And they walked into her living room, and they saw a load of Catholic iconography on the walls and Catholic books on the bookshelves. And they asked her what her politics were, and tried to suggest that the fact that she was a conservative and that she admitted to believing in some of the policies, some of the concerns of the rioters, that this made her akin to a rioter, and she was placed on a terrorist watch list. The presence of, get this, the presence of what the anti-prevent people, what the prevent people said was she had a Viking helmet in the house. It wasn't a Viking helmet; it was a Roman helmet. But they saw this also as evidence of her right-wing fascist tendencies. So please, Keir Starmer, don't start talking to us about demonizing people, about stereotyping people, about persecuting people based on perceived right-wingness, perceived belief, because that's precisely what this government are doing and have been doing for many years now, of course, not just Labour, but the Conservatives as well.
Very briefly again, if I can. I've done all research on this one. Since 2000, there have been 135 terrorist murders. Britons are the victims. 135 people murdered. 133 of those murders were committed by Muslims.
Wow. I'll ask you, Harry, then I'll move on to David. Why do we need these new laws? Surely laws against hate speech already exist. Why is it necessary? Again, we go back to it's Labor politics. But why do we need it? I mean, do the police need more help?
No. Two things there. One, we don't need it, and two, it's not a law. This anti-Islamic nonsense that we're talking about now, it's called It's a non-statutory definition. But of course, in this day and age, we have a police force which are incapable, it seems, or unwilling to differentiate law from non-law, to be able to differentiate guidance from what they need to enforce. So it's completely arbitrary to say that, well, it's not law, it's only guidance, because the police don't understand the difference. Employers and HR departments don't understand the difference. And it will be enforced as though it were the law. You may not end up with a criminal record, but you will end up with a non-crime criminal record. You may not end up being interviewed under caution and put before a judge, but you will end up with a shadow criminal record, which is disclosable on an enhanced DBS check. This is out of the playbook of the Stasi. This completely bypasses natural justice, where you start enforcing laws which aren't actually law. And when you start punishing people that is outside of the judicial process, then you have a Stasi, a Cheka, a Gestapo. That's what we have here.
David, can I ask you, I'm just looking at the official definition of anti-Muslim hostility. Dominic Grieve was chairman of the committee. What's your thoughts on that?
Say that again, sorry. I missed that bit.
Dominic Grieve was the chairman of the committee that penned the official definition of anti-Muslim hostility. And he's a former Conservative Attorney General.
Yeah, I think people are just being asked to do things, and consequences if they don't do them. I think I don't consider myself right, left, anything really. I have certain views about what I think is right and wrong, because and the reason I sit there is because they keep redefining what far right or far left is, and obviously they never talk about far left, and it seems to be much more dangerous. But anyone that's not completely far left is being labelled far right. I mean, you look at any march that goes on, anybody that's conservative or in the middle is being labelled far right. So what they're really doing is they're using a very classic propaganda technique and process from 50, 60 years ago, which is learned helplessness. So they're making it you can't really say or do anything because you feel that you're going to be persecuted if you do. And obviously, David and Harry have got beyond that and have got strong enough characters to speak up, but the majority of the public won't. And what's really dangerous is that they have a vast network of data on what's known as self-perception theory. And what it says is if you can get a public member to make a statement, like they put up I'm against racism, etc., etc., what happens is that when you then label something racist, that member of the public is going to speak against that violently, in their mind, without really understanding what the subject's about. That makes sense. So basically, if you propose any argument that doesn't go along with the public narrative, people are just going to respond like parrots with these terms, and that's why they've created this term. It's going to be another one of those pre-programmed responses that you can't actually talk about the important issue underneath it.
David Atherton, who's going to be the anti-Muslim hostility police?
Well, funny you should say that. Actually, I just before I came on the show, I managed to find my letter from the Metropolitan Police. I bet I should. It's dated the 4th of June 2024, and it says, "Dear Mr. Atherton, I am the investigating officer who is in charge of case reference blah blah blah. This is in relation to the report of racially aggravated public order offence, which was reported to the police on and before the 1st of March 2024. I sent out a meme where it said F Hamas and F Islam, and they called me into the police station. In fact, what he says here, failing to contact me or not allowing the police station on the arranged date will result in arrest." So what? So I sort of trotted down there on the 65 bus down to Kingston Police Station, and there we go. No comment. And about 4 months later, it got upstairs, and they decided that there was no further action. But this, what I think has happened is because Elon Musk has brought in some degree of real free speech on X. That you can say there's a lot you can get away with these days, which you couldn't get away with before. So instead of sort of taking it on the chin, they're actually using the police to enforce anti-free speech laws in this country. I really do think you have to be strong on this. I would advise anybody and everybody to join. If you are sort of a polemic when it comes to Muslim matters, is join the Free Speech Union. And if you are ever called in, just no comment the interview. Or actually, I think some people actually come in with a prepared statement. But yeah, as Harry rightly said, we are now the police are now the Gestapo, they are now the Stasi, that they are the thought police, and we're all going to pay for this. And I'm rather expecting a knock at the door myself in the next few weeks.
It'll be I like doing this, by the way. Say that again. Hello.
Oh, well, they did actually, because I didn't return their emails. Two coppers knocked on my door and actually hand delivered this letter to me.
And what did they say? Did they do this? Hello.
No, they didn't. No, I said, would you like to come in for a cup of coffee? I don't want coppers, standing around on my front porch. And,
Harry, sorry, I just want to
go on.
cut. I just thought that was that part of the police people's training?
No, I don't. It certainly wasn't back in the day when police officers were proper police officers and knew that their one and only job was to uphold the law. And let me just say this now: the vast majority of frontline police officers are not like this. The vast majority of frontline police officers are busy upholding the law. What we have here is a problem with so-called neighborhood police officers. They're the problem. These are the ones that drink from the Kool-Aid. These are the ones that are their one and only job is to enforce free speech. To get rid of free speech and enforce ideology in the name of creating community cohesion and preventing hate. When of course what they actually do is completely the opposite. And David's story there about being, dragged down, being warned, being dragged down to the police station, having a comment interview, and then weeks later you get a letter that says on this occasion there will be no further action. Well, by that time the damage is done. What we say is the process is the punishment. The entire process of being contacted by the police, of knowing that the police are looking at your social media profile, that the police have taken the time and the trouble to engage with somebody who doesn't like you, have taken the trouble to send you a letter threatening you with arrest, and then taken the trouble to interview you under caution, allow you to go away and worry yourself stupid for days, weeks, possibly months on end, only for them to finally say on this occasion, no further action. Well, they knew when they saw those tweets that this was going nowhere. They knew that no crime had been committed. They knew all of that before they began the investigation. This was about putting you through the ringer. This was about an extrajudicial punishment on you in order to teach you a lesson so that you don't do it again. That's what is happening now. It is so damned predictable, these no further actions on this occasion letters. They knew that from the very beginning. There wasn't a cat in hell's chance that this was ever going to go before a magistrate or a judge or the CPS. They knew that. They did it anyway because their sole purpose was to terrify you and put the bejesus in you and get you to conform.
Well, I've reposted it 3 times since then.
Exactly. because people like you and I, when they do that to us, we go like that and we just double down, double up and get louder. But the vast majority of people don't. The vast majority of people, quite rightly, are scared of the police. And when the police say you've either done something wrong or you're approaching the line where you have done something wrong, the reaction of most people is to back off and back off quickly. So they're quite happy to occasionally get a David Atherton or occasionally get a Harry Miller, because for the most part, they'll be getting an average Joe Bloggs on the street and they terrify them into compliance.
What should someone do, Harry, if you hear the hello on your front door? What should you do?
The first thing that you do is you turn your recorder on your phone and you tape absolutely everything. The next thing that you do is you ask them, have I committed, am I suspected of committing a crime? If so, what is the crime? Name me the crime. Give me the definition of the crime. The next thing you do is say, is this do you want me in for a voluntary interview or are you going to arrest me? If they say we want you in for a voluntary interview, you then say, what are the consequences of me not attending the voluntary interview? And if they say arrest you, then you begin to build up a case against them, because the threat of arrest is a threat of violence. So when eventually they do NFA you, which is pretty much inevitable, you are then in a position where you can sue them, or you look for damages against them.
But it would be very, it's quite traumatic. You said that very calmly, but the average person, as you have your mobile phone and you're trying to hit the record button, then you realise it's the Bible or something, because you're a bit all over the shop. So for the average person, and you are right, as you said before, that you get these letters and you almost soil your pants, because this is a family show, so I'm not going to say you shit yourself. But I'm going to do that.
But the thing is, like, most people who have committed a crime know that they've committed a crime. So when the police turn up, they're thinking, "Shit, oops." It's probably something to do with that burglary I committed the other day. It's probably something to do with the fact that I've been stalking somebody and harassing somebody and sending evil letters to somebody saying I'm watching them, I'm gonna kill them or what have you. If you haven't committed a crime and the police turn up, you're absolutely bewildered, because you either think that they're knocking on your door to deliver you some terrible, terrible news, and of course that sets your nerves a jangle, or you're utterly bewildered by the fact that you've been accused of something that wasn't a crime. If you've committed a crime, you absolutely know. This afternoon, I've got to go on another speed awareness course because I was naughty doing a 36 in the 30 zone. Well, I knew I'd done it. It was a fair cop go, and I'll go along the course, and I'll play the game, and I'll try not to speed in that area again. You've done it.
I'm shocked that your Morris Minor would go that fast, actually.
You'd be very surprised what my Morris Minor will do.
I want to know. You'll be hello. We've got David in the background, David Charalimbus. What do you think? Do you think we should, because the police are overworked, they're stressed beyond all belief, do you think we should maybe have a separate department, the anti-Muslim hostility department, run by bureaucrats and HR departments, councils, and they could be the ones to go, what would they say? Oi, open the bloody door, mate. But that's it. So do we get them? Do we get a non-police presence? We have these people running around knocking on doors, wanting to go hello, but they can't. So do we get them, or do we keep it with the police? Because again, they're overworked. I mean, I see McDonald's is it's often a nice stop for them to pop in and have a Macca's. In Australia, it is. You always know where the lights and sirens are going. That they're heading off to McDonald's before they close. But what about in England? Do you have the police do it, David, or do you just get others?
I think what Harry just spoke about was actually much more important than most people will realise. In that, when you look at what they're enforcing, you start to see their true intentions. So the fact that if you get burgled or someone runs into your car, they don't care anymore. You literally, even I think it was Kent Police put a sign up that certain quite serious offences were no longer being accepted at the police station. You had to go online. So what you've got, what Harry said actually was really quite profound, was the actual arrest or the process of the punishment is what they're using is, again, classical psychology to create an outcome. And that outcome is to stop people speaking up and to destroy free speech. And when you look historically, there's Greek philosophers that would say the more the laws, the more corrupt the government. So it really, I think they want the police to do it, and it's purely, again, because if the average member of the public is driving along and there's a blue siren in the mirror, they panic, okay? And they've done that because that's what they've been conditioned to do from a child is, if there's a police officer around, it's generally not a good thing. And so getting the police to do it really does scar people. And David and Harry obviously are beyond that because they've gone beyond that fear. But it doesn't matter if you've got one or two people. It's all about controlling the masses. And the fact is that what you'll see with a lot of people, even people with strong freedom views, because I present to a lot of them, they stop speaking up, okay? And they stop speaking up because it doesn't feel good, okay? They want to, but this is the thing. What we want to do and what we actually do isn't always the same. So I think the police will police it. And I think what they really want is that the public will start policing it. Yeah, and if you look at, yourself, Mike, you almost have to double check now what you're going to say. We don't feel that we can speak freely just in case we say something that will be taken as offence. And that's the most dangerous censorship, is self-censor, because you don't need a law for that. Everyone's just not saying what they truly believe.
David Atherton, I know you probably have a frequent flyer card now from the police, but I was just thinking do you think maybe, and same thing to Harry, do you think that perhaps we should have a lesser department, somebody who isn't that, isn't a real copper, and someone that can pop in and say, here's an infringement notice or something that you've said terrible things about Muhammad and his 17 wives. What do you think, David?
Well, I get the impression that they're going to put somebody politically correct in charge of the anti-Muslim hate department. It probably will be a Muslim or a nation of some description. I really, from what I've read of it, I think they are just passing on the edict to the police, the civil service, maybe to HR again, and and it will be up to third parties to actually oversee the anti-Muslim hate edict. But I just don't think overall it's going to be that successful. The free speech union has been wonderful. Excuse me. In standing up for people when they've gone into the police station and they're charged with something nefarious. But yeah, I just think there's going to be just so much more pushback against it, and I'm just so looking forward to finding out who the tsar is in charge of this, so I can get stuck in. But yeah. I'm sorry. This is another nail in the Labour Party coffin, and I absolutely detest and loathe every fibre, every molecule in their bodies at the moment.
Harry, it's a bit like in Australia when we had COVID, the fiasco, and at one stage, because Aussies don't tell on other Aussies much, it was dob in a neighbour. Oh, they didn't wear a mask. They're out there mowing the lawn, not wearing a mask. Do you think the dob in a neighbour could actually gather some momentum in the UK, that you can report your neighbours for mutterings of things against Muslims? I mean, I could see the hotline would go crazy if they were the neighbours of David Atherton. But what about the general public though? Do you think they would be prepared to call the police to say, my neighbour's been screaming terrible things about Muslims?
Yeah, absolutely. They've been doing it for years, and the sad thing is, you can't stop lunatics being lunatic. You can't stop mad people going online and atting the police, or writing letters, or knocking on the police officer's door and crying like a baby. You can't stop that. What you can do is you can expect a police officer, a police force, to say, on your bike, my son, stop wasting my time. If you come to me again moaning and complaining about David Atherton or Harry Miller or Posey Parker, what I'm going to do is I'm going to arrest you for wasting our police time. Now off you go. That's what needs to happen, but it's not happening because we have a subset of police officers called neighbourhood policing. Once upon a time, they used to go around schools and tell you not to talk to strangers. They would teach you the Green Cross Code. They would oversee cycling proficiency tests, etc. Now what they do is they hold me. I'll give you an example. Our local policing neighbourhood watch officer spent an entire day with the bakers of Scunthorpe a few months ago, teaching them about hate crime. Why? What have the bakers of Scunthorpe got to do with hate crime? Has there been an outbreak of people using baguettes to bash other people over the head? And so this problem needs addressing at source. It's a complete and utter waste of time. But the neighbourhood policing people, they absolutely love it. And they have been encouraging and will continue to encourage these complete and utter motivated lunatics to contact them, and they will more than happily, go along and knock on our door and kick off the psychological warfare against us and against our free speech.
You're all about my age, 23. But
You can come again.
I'm denial. I'm practicing that very strongly at the moment. But I'm just thinking though, because comedians, they normally use everyday activities, discrepancies in common sense as part of their repertoire. Could you imagine? And I was David Cheralumbas. I just think if we had, how long do you think they'd be out of jail for? Dick Emery, Kenny Everett, Benny Hill. Do you think they'd be out of jail for long?
Well, no, I mean you couldn't. This is why Ricky Gervais, I think, is important. And
He's
whilst
an
I,
idiot.
yeah, why I didn't agree with some of his stances previously. I mean, he loves animals, which is always a good thing for me. But he refuses to back down, and that's really important because it's not about what the view is. Yeah, and that's the thing. It's about being able to express the view. So supporting someone that doesn't agree with you, to be allowed to say it is important for freedom. I mean, we can't be right about everything, but the comedians were always the ones that would be the key. I mean, look at Spit and Image in the UK. They had to change when they would release political news because Spit and Image had such an influence on the public's opinion. And that's the key. But I mean, I think there was one of the comedians that went on a one of these woke courses and then come out saying, "Oh, I'm changing my comedy, etc." That's just another brainwashing technique, isn't it? So the comedians need to speak up. The fact that the real concerning thing is the fact that the dial moves so slowly is that the average member of the public won't notice it. So we presented on self-perception theory, which is really key, and that's literally how the public sees themselves. Now, most of the public do not have a strong view on a lot of things. And when they don't have a strong view and they're not well researched and they don't understand the issues, like if you talk to Dave or Harry, they're very clear on what the issues are, they've done their research. But the average member of the public doesn't have that. And that means that they're very vulnerable to influence because they don't have a clear idea. So when you watch TV shows now, and you'll know that all of these things are written into the TV shows, the people then adopt that opinion. We're having large-scale psychological manipulation of the public beyond what anyone is realizing.
Blimey.
I sort of agree there too. I often think and actually I'll go to Harry on this one because it sort of points out. I mean, London seems to be at times the centre of someone's joke. If you look at Ricky Gervais with his alcohol, he had an ad in the subway, and it said, "Welcome to London, but don't forget your stab vest." And I think it's one of the funniest things I've ever seen, except for Robin Williams. And this is why I mentioned you, Harry, before you had guns. And he said, what's the difference between the English police and the American police? The English police say stop, or I'll say stop again. And so it's very funny. But it does say a lot that once upon a time we could laugh at ourselves. And now that we have this hyperactivity in sensitive, I suppose, or wokeness, we pull all that back now. We can't laugh at ourselves. What do we do, Harry? How do we fix it? How do we stop taking ourselves seriously? How do we become a little more informed at the same time? And how can we tell the Muslims that the majority of us don't want to kill them, don't want to do terrible things to them, and the majority of Muslims, much to somebody who's in the panel would disagree with me, they don't want to kill us, they don't want to maim us, not all of them, and not all of the on the other side. So I think we need to take a couple of steps back because we are so oversensitive, and we have politicians, one trying to win votes, and two trying to be almost the Pope. Although from what you were saying before, maybe the Pope will get charged for being an extremist too.
Yeah, exactly. I
think we need to look at ourselves, don't we?
Yeah, I think I remember Trevor Phillips, our former sort of equalities czar. He did a fantastic program. I think it was Panorama or one of those sort of programs where he was looking at the Muslim problem. And what he said about the moderate Muslims was this. He said moderate Muslims opened the door for the extremist Muslims to go through. And I think that is a profound observation. Now, the moderate Muslims aren't the ones doing the killings. They're not the ones planting the bombs. But there is most definitely a sense that they understand it. They have some sympathy toward these actions. That they put up with it. That it's maybe not what they would do, but hey, we're in a war against the infidel. So I think that's one of the problems, and I think one of the antidotes, as we point out, is laughter. I think I would encourage everybody to go along to a Dominic Frisby gig and join in the singing of "We're All Far Right Now," because the best way to take the poison out of this and the sting out of this is to lampoon it. So yeah, when somebody says "you're far right," I go, "Yeah, we're all far right now. We're all far right now," and just embrace it and enjoy it, because you're not going to change their minds about it. So we might as well lampoon it. And I would also hope, I mean, it's difficult saying, I hope there is an outbreak of drawings, comedic drawings about the Prophet Muhammad, because to do so is likely to get you on a death list. So I'm not going to encourage that, but not because I have any respect for the Prophet Muhammad or that ridiculous law, just because I have genuine fear for you as a cartoonist, somebody who wants to sort of express themselves in that way. I have genuine fear that you will then be targeted and killed, and I don't want that to happen to you. But laughter is definitely the best medicine.
It is, and that's what the Australians did on the last Ashes tour. We enjoyed ourselves immensely.
Oh, thank you very much. You had some into the conversation, didn't you?
Well, I had to. I mean, I always do. I mean, you guys are just like, bring it on, baby. David Atherton, just before we wind up, just a couple of things to everybody. Muslims fear using public services such as transport and healthcare, and some even feel so scared that they isolate themselves for their own safety. On the other side of the coin, that's not good either. And we need to, this is where I see Starmer and your government and councils and stuff, you're putting this wedge down, which Harry mentioned before, dividing the population. But instead of that, there has to be some way to say, we don't care whether you're a Martian, Chinese, black, pink, whatever. We don't care. Just be a good citizen of the UK. How do we get that message over?
Well, I think that is generally the message to this country. Diversity is our strength, and multiculturalism and things like that. That is put out there with us. But I'm sorry, amongst the Muslim population, that they don't really. Many of them don't fit in. Let me give you a couple of examples. Henry Jackson did a poll of British Muslims back in 2024, and they found that 52% wanted to make it illegal to draw a picture of Muhammad. A 2016 poll that was commissioned by Channel 4 News, which is a bit of a lefty type station, found that 52% of British Muslims want to make homosexual acts illegal. And also a gay teacher should not be teaching children was voted in by 47%. There, unfortunately, from what I can work, let me go back one. President Erdogan of Turkey said in 2009, there is no such thing as moderate Islam. There is just Islam. And I feel really sorry for the real genuine secular moderate Muslims in this country. The reason there's not so much of a moderate Muslim body in this country is because they will be subject to intimidation, bullying, and probably even violence. Anybody who sticks their head above the parapet, someone like myself, I've had death threats. I've had one person phone up a private detective looking for my home address. And so what we have, generally speaking, is people who who culturally are so diverse from us, in the antipodes, the opposite ends of Western liberal enlightened democracy. Well, of course, there's always hope, but I can't see too much. Another example, for example, that came out from the Henry Jackson study was 31% of British Muslims think a man should be allowed to have more than one wife. There are 6,000 FGM cases in this country. Cousin marriages within the Muslim community are rife. It's as much as 50%. In some areas of this country. I think I read the other day in Bradford it had gone down to 46%. Were cousin marriages. And the National Health Service and the taxpayer has to pick up the tab for this. Unfortunately, these are the type of conversations under the anti-Muslim hatred edict, which I think could be banned. I'll be putting this video out later on. I'll be sending it to my friend at Kingston Police Station. Come and get me, mate. I'm just quoting facts here. It is purely a means of completely shutting down debate and any criticism of Islam and Muslims. The point is, Islam is a political and religious entity. It's a complete way that's meant to rule your life. And when it comes to politics, when it comes to religion, you have the one-stop shop.
We have just about run out of time. I'll ask you all this one question, and you also, David, if you just continue on. The anti-Muslim hostility definition, done more harm or more good to make a Muslim's life a little more enjoyable and safe? David Atherton.
Oh, sorry. It's another notch on the ratchet to not civil war, maybe, but civil unrest. I think a lot of people in this country are particularly angry about it, and I'm sure, as Harry pointed out when Theresa May was Home Secretary on the trans stuff, I think it's going to have exactly the same strident effect when it comes to dealing with Islam in this country.
And Harry, it's probably done more, has done a lot more harm. It's not going to enhance things. Same question to you, but do you think this was an intentional wedge from the government?
No, I think the government have been stupid puppets yet again of people with very, very bad intentions. I don't think it will protect a single Muslim from anything at all. I think what it has done is made life for the likes of you and I much more precarious and dangerous.
And David Charalumbus, what's your thoughts?
I think it's like poking yourself with a stick to find out where it hurts. It's just going to create problems. I think they know the research. They know that when you suppress any form of discrimination, it creates more discrimination. When you allow people to freely express whatever their views are, then you can have an open conversation and people are open to being fair and to change, and etc. So, yeah, I think it's going to have the opposite effect, and I think they know that before they bring it in.
Yeah.
Interesting. And I won't tell any more jokes about the English cricket team.
Well, you don't need to.
It was hilarious, though. Anyway, that's another court case. Hello. David Atherton, if somebody wants to find out more about you, pop down to the local police station, maybe.
Yeah, I'll see you in the red line opposite Kingston Station after I've been in there at 2:00 and have a quick pint at the same time. I'm Dave Atherton 20 on X. And by the way, you might want to look at some of my articles, because the one I did a couple of weeks ago is called "Britain Becomes an Islamic State." And what I document what the future holds in the next 90 years for Britain. It ends in 2111. I hope you might enjoy that. And also, so my last article was on this prevent anti-terrorism thing, where the so-called far right are the baddies. So do have a look.
Harry Miller, do you think David Atherton would have been a good crim?
I think he's an absolutely perfect criminal, to be honest with you. Yeah. I would have had great pleasure in arresting him. I don't know what for, but
We'll work out something. If somebody wants to find out more about you, Harry, how do they do that?
Okie dokie. So go on to X and type in @WeAreFairCop and you'll find what we do there.
And David Cheralumbus, same question to you.
Yes, it's reachingpeople.net. And we're really showing people how to have conversations and pointing out the government's propaganda and the mind control, etc. When people are educated on propaganda, they're much less likely to fall for it.
David Atherton, political commentator and journalist. Harry Miller, CEO of Fair Cop. David Cheralumbus, founder of Reaching People. Thank you very much for being part of the panel. I've enjoyed it immensely. We'll have another panel on another subject, probably tomorrow. We're not too sure about that one, but we'll let you know. Just keep watching the socials. This has been The World Today and The Protagonists. Hopefully see you tomorrow.
With your help, we can continue to fight for freedom, reach new audiences, and bring important information to the public free of charge. This is not possible without your generosity. Join our quest for the truth and our freedom and donate today, telling it as it is. This is today's News Talk, The World Today.